Welcome. My name is Thomas Muha, and the purpose of this presentation is to, first of all, introduce you to the notion of artificial intelligence platforms, and second, to build on that and uncover important research questions that relate to this conceptualization of artificial intelligence platforms, especially from the business and economic perspective. This work builds on analysis that we have done together with my colleague Timo Seppala. And of course, it relates to a paper that we published earlier this year. Now, I think the best starting point for this presentation is definition of AI. And what we mean by AI is it's actually a very broad view on AI. We're thinking about anything that you might describe as having indicated intelligence when it comes to activities or actions that computers might perform. So the key concept related to this definition is that computers now have cognitive capabilities that they didn't used to have. So at least until recently, companies were not able to in an economically feasible way, implement these technologies to benefit from this in their business. Another aspect of this definition is that we don't want to tie our hands to specific technology. So of course, we could be talking about machine learning technologies, and this is the trend that companies right now are implementing these technologies. But we already now know that there's convergence between, or at least potential for convergence between based approach symbolic AI. So we want our definition to capture that as well. So given this definition, let's look at some examples. Is this technology really that relevant, or are these technologies really that relevant in the business context? Of course, most of you know that Google is using machine learning technologies to rank search engine results. Also, many of you have used Google Translate, so machine translation technology. So these are just some examples from Google. Famously, Amazon has been recommending other items for you to buy based on your recent purchase, as well as your past purchases and purchases of similar people or people who bought similar items. Another very well-known example from Amazon is Amazon Echo. So this smart home speaker, and which is inherently integrated with Amazon Alexa, which is a personal assistant. So this is a combination of multiple technologies, of course, but artificial intelligence technologies play essential role in these solutions. When it comes to Microsoft Office, many of you, or at least some of you, probably have used dictation to write some text, and this is voice recognition technology. Another nowadays very well known technology to us is Microsoft Teams. Here, Microsoft is, for example, choosing which speakers to highlight using machine learning technologies, as well as this virtual background replacement or captioning of the discussion. So these are just some examples that you might see in use by Microsoft. So, okay, you will say these are all tech giants. So what about other companies? Let's look at some examples from different industries from Finland. Stora Enso, a large paper industry company. So they are using, for example, machine learning technologies for quality monitoring and optimization in their paper mills. So this was industrial context. Very different example is if we look at, for example, FimLab, which is a company that specializes in healthcare services, specifically in laboratory work. So one part or one aspect of laboratory work is preparation of reports. And this is a tedious manual work for many employees, which now has been facilitated to great extent with voice recognition and transcription technologies here in this example provided by Inscripta. Another example, Foreno is a company that is offering short-term apartment rentals. They have used machine learning to optimize their revenue generation. So revenue management, which essentially is leveraging reinforcement learning technologies to optimize pricing of rental apartments, and in this way time the pricing with the demand and manage the revenue. Another example from consumer context is WordDive. So this solution application is helping individuals to learn new foreign languages, and the application is leveraging machine learning technologies or AI technologies to personalize the training or the course offering for each individual person. So these were just some examples, but it gives you an idea of very wide range of applications of AI technologies. And we will be happy to invite you to access more examples and get more insights in relation to State of AI in Finland, which is a report that has been published by Finland's AI Accelerator. So there's more examples there. But coming back to the original purpose of this discussion. So when we think about AI use cases in the business context, our approach to analyze and understand meaning of these technologies is to see what executives tell us about how their businesses are leveraging these technologies. So our approach, we looked at S&P 500 companies. So these are 500 largest publicly listed companies in the US. These companies have public events. So these are investor days, analyst days or meetings, as well as quarterly earnings calls. And all these events are transcribed, which means that we have access to a lot of content, a lot of material that we can analyze. We down-selected transcripts from these companies where relevant keywords were mentioned, keywords such as machine learning, AI, artificial intelligence. Of course, there are big differences between companies. Some companies talk about these technologies more, some less, as well as there are clear differences between sectors. In any case, after reading about 2,000 of these transcripts, we concluded that on a high level, we can see that there are two approaches to using AI. And the best picture to really illustrate that, or picture that comes to mind at first, is that of a gold rush. So in gold rush, there are these miners who are looking for golden nuggets. So these are companies, most of the companies that are looking for ways to unlock business value with artificial intelligence technologies. And like miners, they are looking in a specific spot. Everyone has own approach. So these companies are also looking, everyone is in a way approaching it in a slightly different way. But then in Gold Rush, there were also these entrepreneurs, jeans and shovel sellers. And also in this case, we have companies, there's much less of them. So gold miners outnumber shovel and jeans sellers. However, these companies, they are more homogeneous, similar to each other. Play very important role there because they impact the whole ecosystem of all the other companies as well. So we decided to focus in our analysis on these companies. So the first question is, who are these companies? And maybe not surprisingly, these are the three tech giants that really stood out in our analysis. So we focused on these three companies. And after looking a little bit deeper into these companies, it seems that this analogy of jeans and shovel sellers is actually not the best one. And why is that? This is because these companies are not simply making or selling tools for others to use. They do something different. They make tools which are used by others to make own tools. So we would call it or we would conceptualize it as AI platform strategy. So what we mean by that is that these companies create platform, create arena or place for other actors, other players to participate. They can meet each other. They can benefit from collaboration, from the context that these platforms are creating, and they can leverage core compute data and algorithms that are inside the platform, as well as a wide range of peripheral resources that are on top of this core. So let's look a little bit deeper into this. To be more formal, we can use a definition of platform. And here we are building on or using a very well-known definition of a platform from Annabel Gower's article, Research Policy from 2014. So we will look at the individual building blocks of this definition and see whether we can recognize resemblance between this definition and that of what we see with the three companies. So the first thing is that we have a distinct platform owner, and these companies will create and manage their platform within their organization. So we are definitely talking about this type of meta-organizational structure. These platforms federate and coordinate, so they align interest and activities. They coordinate actions of multiple agents. These agents can be private individuals, these can be companies, and they can innovate together on their own, and also compete with each other. And this is either enabled or facilitated by offering of the platform. So the platform provides the common frame of reference, a common language, common toolbox or tool sets that all these platform participants can use. Next thing, importantly, this platform creates value because it harnesses large numbers of large number of people who are working, as well as companies who are working outside of the platform company itself, yet they are still benefiting the platform owner and other participants. So a simple example would be software developers. This can be individuals, this can be companies that are clearly distinct from platform owner, and they can contribute, for example, source code to the platform itself, so that they can benefit other participants. Another aspect of value generation is marketplaces. So all these three companies have their own marketplaces for AI solutions. This is an example from Amazon. Similarly to the idea of mobile app stores, AI developers can package their code and sell for others on the marketplace. So this is again example of transaction platform aspect of these AI platforms. And then finally, looking at technological architecture, we have this modular composition of core and periphery. And if we look at the example from Google, for example, Google's AI Cloud components, we have this illustration that very well resembles the structure of lower layers being closer to the core of the platform, the infrastructure development environment. And then as we climb higher, we approach the periphery of the platform technology stack with individual solutions or services or applications. So all in all, it seems that we do in fact see a very good resemblance between what we observe these three companies are doing in relation to AI and the definition of AI. So we are very confident that the conceptualization of AI platforms is a solid one. So we ask ourselves then, who are AI platform scholars? What is it that they have researched so far? What is it that we know about this topic? And it turns out that actually there's not much research that uses this conceptualization. There's lack of coordinated research effort around this topic. There's lack of research agenda. We decided to make one. So together with Timo Seppala, we published a working paper at the beginning of this year where we outline a research agenda that covers this topic of artificial intelligence platforms from the context of digital economy and business. Now, this paper has been published as ETLA, so Research Institute for Finnish Economy working paper, and we are planning to take this insights forward. So in the remainder of this presentation, I will discuss the key or the questions that we outline in the research agenda, as well as the next step that we plan for this paper. So we agenda into two levels. So we propose questions, research questions that are on micro level, as well as questions on macro level. On micro level, we propose questions that relate to individual AI platform. So platform and interior of that platform. So more specifically, of course, we ask first questions related to better understanding of AI platforms, better conceptualization of AI platforms. So who are the agents? What are the constituent parts of core and periphery? What is the architecture of the platform? So better understanding of this concept is, of course, a good starting point. Other than that, we list a wide range of questions that relate to core topics that have been already researched in the context of platforms. So there's a lot of topics that need to be understood in the context of AI platforms. So we are talking about openness of platforms, boundary resources, how platform owners control and facilitate as created. And we are talking also about strategy and governance models for AI platforms. We add to that a question regarding sustainability of AI platforms. And we don't mean just sustainability from the long-term viability perspective of these platforms, but also from environmental and social perspective. But even if we had answers to all of these questions, we wouldn't have complete understanding of AI platforms because we limited these questions to a single platform context. So that's where macro perspective comes in. That's where we ask questions related to interactions between AI platforms, how AI platforms might impact industries. And as we have seen already many examples at the beginning of this presentation, clearly there are many use cases across a wide range of industries. So we do expect impact on national economy level and potentially even impact on geopolitical situation. And we ask these questions on macro level from along three axes to expansion of AI platforms and their integration with industries, competition, and regulation. In doing that, we first use analogy of AI platforms acting or working as if they were utility companies. So if you think about a utility company, for example, electricity utility or water utility company, some of the first questions that come to mind or key issues relate to market power concentration, competition, regulation. So we ask these questions in relation to AI platforms. The next list of or range of questions relate to how these platforms, AI platforms, can integrate with other digital platforms. What are the consequences of this integration, as well as how they continue to expand and integrate with different industries. what might be the consequences of this expansion. And then finally, we recognize that there seems to be polarization of on the geopolitical level in the context of AI platforms, where North American AI platforms and Chinese platforms are solidifying and fortifying themselves in their, let's say, neighborhoods or areas of influence. And we ask questions about potential conflicts of interest and implications on regional and national level. For us in Europe, this also brings important questions related to what are the implications for Europe when we don't have any strong local or indigenous AI platform. Similarly, developing countries could also ask similar question. Of course, they stand to answer from very different perspective because of their own context. So all in all, we see that there's a lot of interesting questions that we have identified. And when it comes to next steps for this paper, we see that we are starting to work on dividing the insights and questions into two separate papers. So those questions that we listed on micro level lead us towards deepening of empirical analysis, and we see that we can bring contribution to academic discussion and our understanding when it comes to role, and so really explication of the role that AI technologies play in the context of platforms. And then when it comes to the questions that we have identified on macro level, we see that continuing with the structure of agenda is a useful one, because there are many questions on this research agenda that really ask for prompt answers, because policymakers are making decisions, companies are being impacted by this situation on national and local level. So I would like to close off by saying that we would be happy to hear any feedback or comments that you might have. We're happy to respond to this. And also we welcome any collaboration opportunities in relation to this topic.